In recent months, an atmosphere has been forming around Google that many analysts already compare to the period when the world first witnessed modern generative neural networks. If not long ago the main competition was between ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, and Grok, today more and more experts believe the industry is approaching a new turning point. According to information circulating in technological circles, Google is completing preparations to launch its most ambitious artificial intelligence system in the entire history of the Gemini project. This is a model that many insiders are already unofficially calling Gemini 4.0. Despite the lack of official confirmation for many details, the volume of rumors has become so large that they are no longer possible to ignore. Former employees of major technology companies, analysts from investment funds, journalists covering the artificial intelligence market, and even some software developers increasingly hint that Google is preparing not an ordinary update, but a genuine technological leap. According to them, Gemini 4.0 could become the system that for the first time brings the mass market closer to a level of artificial intelligence that only a few years ago was considered science fiction. The key difference of Gemini 4.0 from previous generations is allegedly not the number of parameters or the speed of generating responses. The main focus is on the model's ability to reason much more deeply and for much longer than existing competitors. Many specialists believe that today's AI market is gradually hitting the limits of the traditional approach. Modern models already know how to write code, create images, analyze documents, and hold conversations. However, the next stage is the ability to plan complex actions over long periods of time. It is precisely here, according to rumors, that Google is placing its main emphasis. Some analysts suggest that Gemini 4.0 will be able to break down a large task into dozens or even hundreds of intermediate steps while independently monitoring their execution. If today's AI often resembles a very intelligent conversational partner, the new system may begin to resemble a full-fledged digital employee. Imagine a situation where a person assigns the task of creating a business plan. Instead of producing a few pages of text, the system independently analyzes the market, studies competitors, builds a financial model, develops a marketing strategy, and proposes directions for further development, all without constant user involvement. That is why many experts describe the coming years as the beginning of the era of AI agents. And if the rumors are correct, Gemini 4.0 is expected to be one of the first representatives of this new wave. According to information appearing in industry publications, Google has long been working on enabling artificial intelligence not only to answer questions, but also to perform real actions on behalf of users, including booking trips, working with documents, analyzing data, managing projects, and even interacting with various services without constant user supervision. A particularly interesting aspect is the question of competition. Today, many believe that Google's main rival remains ChatGPT. Others argue that Grok from xAI poses a serious threat. However, when viewed more broadly, it becomes clear that this is no longer just competition between individual chatbots. What is at stake is control over the future digital economy. The company that builds the most useful artificial intelligence will gain access to a massive global user base. That is why the largest technology companies are investing tens of billions of dollars in neural network development. For them, this is not just another product. It is the foundation of future technologies. According to several analysts, Google has one important advantage. The company already controls a huge portion of the internet infrastructure. Search, maps, email, cloud services, video platforms, and the Android operating system. All of this creates a unique ecosystem in which artificial intelligence can operate far more effectively. If Gemini 4.0 truly receives deep integration across all of the company's services, its capabilities could turn out to be much broader than those of most competitors. Imagine a situation a few years from now. A user wakes up in the morning and simply tells their digital assistant that they need to organize a business trip. The artificial intelligence independently checks the schedule, selects the most cost-effective tickets, books a hotel, creates calendar events, prepares documents, and notifies meeting participants. All of this happens almost instantly. Such scenarios until recently seemed like science fiction. However, today many specialists are convinced that this is exactly the direction the entire industry is moving in. At the same time, along with excitement, serious concerns are emerging. As artificial intelligence becomes more capable, more questions arise regarding safety. Some researchers warn that humanity is gradually approaching a point where the capabilities of AI will grow faster than society's ability to control these technologies. Many people recall the history of the internet. In the early years of the global network, most people saw only its advantages. Only years later did problems related to misinformation, cybercrime, and data leaks become apparent. Now, experts fear that something similar could happen with artificial intelligence, but on a much larger scale. The topic of so-called loss of control of AI is being discussed especially actively. It is important to understand that most specialists are not talking about Hollywood-style scenarios in which robots take over the planet. The real danger looks much more mundane. It refers to systems that begin making decisions whose consequences humans are unable to assess in time. For example, if a super-powerful artificial intelligence gains access to financial markets, it could make thousands of decisions every second. If such a system makes an error or is improperly configured, the consequences could be extremely serious. That is why more and more experts are calling on governments to develop unified international rules for regulating artificial intelligence. Interestingly, there is no consensus within the industry itself about who should control AI development. Some believe governments should handle it. Others are convinced that state institutions are too slow for such a rapidly evolving technology. Still others propose creating international organizations similar to those that exist in the field of nuclear energy. But while politicians debate, the technological race continues. According to some estimates, investments by the largest companies in artificial intelligence have already reached hundreds of billions of dollars. New data centers are being built. Millions of graphics processors are being purchased, and gigantic computing clusters are being created. Many specialists believe that the world is currently witnessing the largest technological race since the space programs of the 20th century. That is why every new release generates such enormous interest. If Gemini 4.0 truly lives up to expectations, the consequences could be colossal. Artificial intelligence will begin to penetrate more and more deeply into education, medicine, industry, science, transport, and virtually every other sphere of human activity. Imagine a doctor receiving instant analysis of millions of medical studies. Imagine an engineer being assisted by AI in designing new materials. Imagine a scientist being able to test hypotheses in a matter of hours that previously required years of work. Many experts are convinced that this is where the main potential of artificial intelligence lies. Not to replace humans, but to massively amplify their capabilities. However, the most interesting question is no longer about Gemini 4.0. More and more analysts are beginning to ask a different question. What happens after Gemini 5.0? According to some researchers, it is the fifth generation of such systems that could mark the beginning of a completely new era. If current models are learning to understand human language and perform tasks, then future generations may approach the level of a universal intelligence capable of independently mastering new fields of knowledge with almost no human involvement. This is precisely the moment many refer to as a true AI explosion. Imagine a world in which every discovery automatically accelerates the creation of the next discovery. A world where artificial intelligence helps build even more advanced artificial intelligence. A world in which scientific progress begins to accelerate so rapidly that changes become noticeable almost every month. For now, this still looks like a hypothesis. However, an increasing number of experts believe that humanity may be much closer to such a future than most people assume today. And if the rumors around Gemini 4.0 prove even partially true, the coming years may become some of the most important in the history of technology. Perhaps it is right now that a new chapter in the development of artificial intelligence is beginning, one that will transform the economy, the labor market, education, healthcare, and the daily lives of billions of people around the world. And the most astonishing part is that many of these changes may happen far faster than anyone expected just a few years ago. But the more rumors about Gemini 4.0 emerge, the more frequently a question appears in the expert community that just a few years ago was considered purely science fiction. Is there even a limit to the development of artificial intelligence? Because if one looks at the speed of progress in recent years, it becomes clear that each new model evolves significantly faster than the previous one. What seemed impossible 2 years ago is already perceived today as a standard feature. And that is precisely why many analysts believe that the release of Gemini 4.0 may turn out to be far more important than it appears at first glance. According to information that periodically appears in the technological sphere, Google is allegedly working not only on increasing the intelligence of its model, but also on a fundamentally new way of interacting with the surrounding world. The idea is for AI to begin understanding reality not as a set of isolated requests, but as a continuous stream of information. In effect, the system is expected to learn to perceive reality in a more holistic way. Imagine an assistant that remembers everything discussed with the user a month ago, understands the person's long-term goals, is able to analyze their projects, habits, interests, and independently suggest solutions even before the user formulates a request. Many specialists believe that such systems represent the next stage of industry development. That is why some investors already call the coming years the beginning of the era of personal digital intelligences. Each person could receive a virtual assistant that knows almost everything necessary about their work, education, finances, travel, and plans in order to provide effective help. For Google, such a scenario looks especially attractive. For decades, the company has been building the world's largest information infrastructure: the search engine, email, documents, cloud technologies, maps, video services, Android smartphones. All of this forms an enormous ecosystem of data and services. If Gemini 4.0 truly becomes the central element of this system, Google's influence on the market could significantly increase. That is why many competitors are closely watching every hint regarding the capabilities of the new model. The potential confrontation between Gemini and ChatGPT is being discussed especially actively. Some analysts believe that the next few years may become the period of the largest technological competition in the history of the software industry. And this is no longer a battle for chatbot users. What is at stake is something far greater. Companies are effectively competing for the right to create the first truly universal intelligent platform of the future. Whoever wins this race could gain access to a market worth trillions of dollars. That is why investments continue to grow rapidly. New computing centers are being built, specialized processors for artificial intelligence are being developed, massive data centers are appearing that consume as much energy as entire cities once required. Some experts even call artificial intelligence the new industrial revolution. If the first industrial revolution mechanized physical labor, and the computer revolution automated computation, then modern AI is beginning to automate intellectual activity. This is what makes what is happening so significant. However, along with the benefits, serious concerns are also emerging. One of the main questions concerns the labor market. Already today, artificial intelligence is capable of writing texts, creating images, analyzing data, translating documents, assisting programmers, and performing many other tasks. If the capabilities of Gemini 4.0 turn out to be as impressive as some insiders claim, the impact on the labor market could be substantial. Some specialists believe that millions of jobs could become vulnerable to automation. Other analysts are convinced that history will repeat itself in the same way it did during previous technological revolutions. Old professions will disappear, but new ones will emerge in their place. For now, nobody knows which scenario will turn out to be closer to reality, but one thing is already becoming clear. People who learn to effectively use artificial intelligence will gain a significant advantage over those who ignore these technologies. That is why the world's largest universities are beginning to actively introduce AI-related courses. Companies are training employees to work with neural networks. Governments are developing national strategies for artificial intelligence development. In effect, a new technological race is beginning, not between companies, but between entire countries. The United States, China, the United Kingdom, South Korea, Japan, and several other nations consider artificial intelligence one of the key factors of future competitiveness. According to several analysts, the country that becomes the leader in AI will gain a massive advantage in economics, science, and technology. That is why projects such as Gemini are attracting such a high level of attention. But an even larger number of people are interested in another question. What happens if artificial intelligence one day becomes smarter than most humans? Today, this scenario still seems extremely distant. However, some researchers argue that the speed of development of modern models is much higher than was predicted just a few years ago. If progress used to be measured in decades, now major changes are happening literally every year. Because of this, the topic of superintelligent artificial intelligence is gradually ceasing to be purely an academic discussion. Some specialists suggest that one day, a system may emerge that surpasses humans in virtually all intellectual domains simultaneously. This is the scenario that generates the greatest amount of debate. Supporters of AI development believe that such a system could help solve humanity's greatest problems: diseases, the energy crisis, climate change, transportation challenges, and the creation of new materials and medicines could all be accelerated many times over. However, critics warn that such powerful technologies require an unprecedented level of responsibility. If humanity creates a tool that surpasses human intellectual capabilities, it is necessary to understand in advance the mechanisms of control and safety. That is why many researchers increasingly speak about the need for global cooperation. They argue that the largest companies should jointly develop safety standards, share research results, and create mechanisms to prevent potential risks. For now, such initiatives are still at an early stage, but it is obvious that as AI continues to evolve, this issue will become increasingly important. And there is something else as well. Some insiders suggest that Google sees Gemini 4.0 only as an intermediate step toward even more ambitious projects. If these rumors are true, the company may already be working on next-generation technologies. That is why Gemini 5.0 is increasingly being discussed. According to several analysts, this version could become a true turning point for the entire industry. If Gemini 4.0 focuses on improving logic, memory, and the ability to perform complex tasks, then Gemini 5.0 may move to a fundamentally new level of autonomy. In effect, this refers to systems that will be able to independently set intermediate goals in order to achieve a final outcome. This is precisely where the field begins, that many experts describe as the most fascinating and at the same time the most alarming direction of artificial intelligence development. Because at that moment, humanity stops creating just tools. It begins creating intelligent systems capable of independently participating in solving complex global-scale problems. It is possible that in a few years, people will look back at today's neural networks in the same way we now look at the first mobile phones of the 1990s: primitive, limited, and strikingly simple compared to what will come later. And if even part of analysts' predictions turns out to be correct, then the release of Gemini 4.0 will not be just another software update. It may become one of the first steps toward an era that future technology historians will call the beginning of a true AI explosion, a period in which the development of artificial intelligence begins to transform virtually every sphere of human civilization at once. But there is another reason why so much discussion is surrounding Gemini 4.0. Many analysts believe that the artificial intelligence industry is, for the first time, approaching a moment when the speed of technological development begins to outpace society's ability to understand its consequences. Most people still perceive neural networks as a convenient tool for searching information, writing texts, or creating images. However, inside the largest technology companies, far more ambitious scenarios have long been discussed. According to some estimates, in a few years, artificial intelligence may become as essential to everyday life as smartphones and the internet are today. Moreover, many specialists believe that AI adoption will happen even faster. If smartphones needed more than 10 years to reach most of the global population, artificial intelligence is spreading almost instantly thanks to existing digital infrastructure. That is why every new model attracts such strong investor interest. They understand that a market may be forming now that could eventually become significantly larger than the combined markets of mobile devices, social networks, and cloud technologies. The potential integration of Gemini into robotics is being discussed especially actively. Many experts are convinced that the true potential of artificial intelligence will only be unlocked once it gains a physical body. Today, neural networks exist inside servers and smartphones, but in the future, they may begin to control millions of different devices around the world. Imagine factories where most processes are controlled by intelligent systems. Imagine hospitals where AI assists doctors in real time. Imagine homes where a digital assistant manages all devices simultaneously. For many analysts, this is the next stage of technological revolution. Some specialists even draw parallels with the emergence of electricity. When electrical grids were first being built, people saw them as a convenient way to light homes. However, electricity eventually transformed nearly all of civilization. Many believe artificial intelligence may turn out to be a technology of a similar scale. But at the same time, more and more questions are emerging about the future of humanity. If artificial intelligence can perform a significant portion of intellectual work, how will education change? Will children still need to memorize vast amounts of information if any answer can be obtained in seconds? How will the labor market change? Which professions will remain relevant in 10 or 20 years? These are exactly the questions being discussed today in universities, research centers, and the world's largest corporations. Some futurists suggest that humanity is on the verge of the greatest transformation since the Industrial Revolution. Moreover, the scale of change may be so large that many modern professions could look completely different by the middle of the next decade. And here Gemini 4.0 becomes a symbol of these changes. Even if most rumors turn out to be exaggerated, one thing is clear. The AI race is only just beginning. Google, OpenAI, xAI, Anthropic, and dozens of other companies continue to invest enormous resources into developing new models. Each of them is striving to create a system that will represent the next major leap in technological progress. That is why many experts believe that the next few years will go down in history as a period of unprecedented acceleration in scientific and technological development. And if today the world is discussing Gemini 4.0, then very soon attention may shift to even more powerful systems whose capabilities are currently difficult to even imagine.